In 2005, a team of paleoanthropologists working at a site called Dmanisi in the Republic of Georgia lifted a skull out of the ground that was 77 million years old. Something was wrong with the jaw. Every tooth was gone except one. And the bone around the empty sockets wasn't jagged or fresh, it was smooth, resorbed, healed over. Whoever this was hadn't lost his teeth in the moment he died. He'd lost them years earlier, and somehow he kept living. For most of human history, losing every tooth wasn't a death sentence. It was a test of whether the people around someone would keep feeding him anyway. The Dmanisi skull, catalogued as D3444 with its matching jawbone D3900, belonged to an early member of the genus Homo, part of the same population that produced some of the oldest human fossils ever found outside of Africa. The discovery was led by David Lordkipanidze, director of the Georgian National Museum, and published in the journal Nature in 2005 under a title that undersells how strange the find actually is: the earliest toothless hominin skull. Lordkipanidze's team could tell from the bone remodeling that this individual survived for a significant stretch of time, likely years, after losing the ability to chew. So, how does a toothless early human, nearly 2 million years before the invention of a single soft food, survive that long? There was no mashed anything, no broth, no porridge, nothing his species had ever learned to cook. Just meat, tubers, and whatever else could be torn or crushed by teeth he no longer had. Move forward almost 7 million years to Shanidar cave in the Zagros Mountains of Iraqi Kurdistan, and the pattern repeats. Between 1953 and 1960, archaeologist Ralph Selecki excavated the remains of a Neanderthal now known as Shanidar I. Decades later, physical anthropologist Eric Trinkaus took over the analysis and published a landmark study of the skeleton in his 1983 book, The Shanidar Neanderthals. Shanidar I had a crushed eye socket, a right arm withered down to almost nothing, probably paralyzed, and heavy tooth loss and wear on one side of his jaw. Radiocarbon dating places him at roughly 45 to 50,000 years old, and Trinkaus's analysis suggests he lived to around 45, which for a Neanderthal was old age. Here's the disturbing part, or maybe the reassuring one, depending on how it's framed. A one-armed, half-blind, partially toothless Neanderthal could not have hunted for himself, processed his own meat, or chewed his own food in the last years of his life. Someone was doing that for him. Now jump forward again, this time to a moment when ancient humans stopped relying on other people and started building a fix. In 630 BC, in the Etruscan settlement of Satricum in central Italy, someone crafted a small band of pure gold and mounted a false tooth onto it, the earliest known dental bridge in the archaeological record. Dental historian Marshall Becker, who has spent decades cataloging these objects, has documented close to 20 surviving examples. Interestingly, the earliest ones weren't built to fix accidental tooth loss at all. They were cosmetic replacements for teeth that had been deliberately pulled as part of an Etruscan beauty custom. The engineering came first as vanity. Function followed later. And on the other side of the Atlantic, roughly 12 centuries after that, someone in the Maya world went even further. In 1931, archaeologists Wilson and Dorothy Popenoe were excavating a burial site called Playa de los Muertos along the Ula River in Honduras when they uncovered a woman's jawbone dating to around 600 AD. 3 of her lower incisors had been replaced with carved pieces of shell fitted directly into the empty sockets. For 40 years, researchers assumed the shells had been placed after death, purely for burial appearance. Then in 1970, Brazilian dental researcher Amadeo Bobbio took X-rays of the jaw and found something the earlier researchers had missed. Compact bone had grown up around 2 of the shell implants, the kind of bone growth that only happens around a living tooth root. She hadn't been buried with these. She had been living, eating, and speaking with them, possibly for years. So which explanation actually accounts for how ancient humans survived losing their teeth, the engineering, or something else? Rule out the engineering first. Gold bridges and shell implants are recent inventions by the standard of this story, a few thousand years old at most. They cannot explain a Neanderthal at Shanidar 45,000 years ago, and they come nowhere near explaining a hominin at Dmanisi who went toothless 77 million years in the past, long before anyone in his lineage shaped metal or carved shell into anything. Rule out the idea that he simply managed fine without teeth. Paleoanthropologist David DeGusta, who studied comparable cases of tooth loss and severe injury across the hominin fossil record, has argued that this specific pattern of healed, resorbed bone is difficult to explain any other way. It reflects sustained care from other members of the group, not lucky biology. Someone had to be softening food, sharing the easiest parts of a kill, keeping a toothless or one-armed companion alive for years at a time, long after that companion had stopped being able to contribute to the hunt. Which leaves one answer standing. Long before gold bridges, long before shell implants, long before anyone had a word for dentistry, the actual technology that kept toothless humans alive was other humans, a willingness to keep feeding someone who could no longer feed himself, stretched out over months and years, in a world with no guarantee that kindness would ever be returned. That instinct didn't start with the Etruscans or the Maya. It shows up 77 million years ago in a jawbone with only one tooth left in it, resorbed and smoothed by years of healing no medicine could explain. Modern dentures and titanium implants are just the latest chapter in a habit that's almost as old as the genus Homo itself. The habit of deciding that someone without teeth was still worth feeding. Long before anyone carved a replacement tooth, someone had already decided this person was worth keeping alive.